distributed solar photovoltaics, adding insulation, LED lights, public transit, solar hot water, recycling, on and on and on. And so then they can see, okay, here's the roadmap. There's the problem. We just got to do these things. How hard could it be, right? And so then we put it to the students, and part of there's hope is you can do something. And so we started using this tool called the Decision Playbook. And the Delta Schools District has started using it, especially for this middle year school age kids. And it's like, okay, based on your personal values, what's a good decision right now? And so we talked about how, okay, the classroom seating, you guys get to choose how we're sitting, but think about what your values are. Is your value that you actually want to learn something? Is your value that you want to sit next to your friend? Is your value that you don't want this person bothering you? Is your value that you don't have glasses and you can't see, so you want to sit up the front? So then based on this, how should we choose to set up the classroom? And we actually went through that process based on what your values were. And then we changed it to, okay, if you had to make a climate decision based on Project Drawdown, which decision would you choose for yourself? So this is a student who was deep into dance, and they had to rank their personal values the most. So what's important to you? Using money wisely. Have time for hobbies and interests. Have money for hobbies and interests. Keep the planet livable for all people. Keep the planet healthy for plants and animals that live here. Keep the planet livable for people in British Columbia. So what's your highest value, right? And this person was actually doing a ton of babysitting for their dance outfits that were super expensive, and then all of the Starbucks they drank in between dance classes. And so using money wisely, and they had a good economic mindset, and having time for their hobbies. And so in the end, they decided that doing a plant-rich diet wasn't going to meet their values. Going to a climate rally was not going to meet their values or their set of priorities. Walking more, maybe, but they ended up choosing to reduce their food waste. And so thought about how they packed their lunches, and then we did a 1-week challenge of you actually trying to meet your own challenge for yourself. And then they journaled about it later. Okay. And then that's where we sort of land the plane, is in the end, so we did our final survey, and now we're about 75% on this side here. So we went from 50% to 75% through the course of the unit. We had to go into the deep dark zone of here's how bad things are. And then we had to climb out the wall of hope by actually looking in, okay, how do we solve it? What's the game plan, okay? And then here is just from their journals. Yes, my opinion changed, but climate change does not affect me. So okay, not too much, and you can see before in the survey, does it affect you that it could affect other British Columbians? What about other creatures or animals or species? But no, it's about me. My level of concern did not change for me because I knew about climate change before, okay. Yes, my concern changed. The last question on the survey said, how much will it affect future generations? Before I put a moderate amount, but after learning more about it all, I put a great deal. I'm more cautious. I know that it could kill a lot of people. We looked into some of the effects. So you could see it actually sank in, but they could find a way that they could be a part of solving it. So mine's very numbers and data-y and graphs, and then Cassandra does a beautiful job of bringing it in, bringing it home and settling it. So I'm gonna invite Cassandra up.
Cranky uncle.
Oh, the cranky uncle. Yeah, it was beautiful. So, cranky uncle is, I didn't put all the lessons. If you're a teacher and you want this, so Michael Fox at Langdale took my piece of paper and ran with it, and is just using all the lessons. So at the end, there's a QR code, and if you click on it, it has all the resources, and then one of the resources is just a page, a front back page that has all the lessons I did in this unit. It was probably double the amount that I had here, But one of them was Cranky Uncle, and Cranky Uncle is a blast because he just keeps getting angrier. It's also like I remember in university learning about logical arguments, and like that a slippery slope is actually not a good argument, and there are other arguments that actually are more powerful and can defeat that argument. And so the idea is that people can come at you with arguments that sound good, but actually logically aren't as strong, don't have as good of a foundation. And so to understand that at like a 12-year-old level, like I was just hearing about that in my 20s. So it's actually a really powerful tool about logic and information. So anyway.
Hi everybody. I'm just gonna move over. Perfect. Okay, so when I was teaching climate change with Hope, I'm really glad that the word hope is in there. I have 5 steps that I kind of do. And the reason I say I'm really glad that hope is in there is because when we're teaching about something that's so big like this, if somebody's not connected to it, there's no way they're going to engage. And if they don't feel like there's any hope, especially a young person, they're already like, the age I teach is grade 6, 7. So I teach at Cedar Grove, grade 6, 7. And they're already really angry at older people, us, for kind of leaving them this world that they have to deal with. My class has very much believed in climate change. There might be 1 or 2 that are doubting it, but there's a lot of fear that comes up and a lot of anger. So you have to kind of cut through that. And I found that, well, it's proof out there. If we don't feel like we can do something about something, we shut down. Anyway, so I've got these 5 steps. And the first one is about building a community and a place of safety. And in order to be able to do that and build trust, where you can talk about something that's so vulnerable, you have to be able to connect with the whole person. So it's not just about me teaching them or teaching at them, it's about getting down to the same level, connecting to our bodies, to our breath, to our emotion. So I'm gonna ask, if you guys are comfortable with it, I'd like to start with just a short meditation. Is that okay? And I'll pull up a chair, because I think it's really important to be kind of on the same level without anything in between. We can just sit down. If you feel comfortable and safe enough, you can close your eyes or allow your gaze to go down. And we're just gonna start by connecting with our breath. Feeling the air come in your nose. We've had a lot going on in our lives, in our days, a lot that brought us to this moment. And we're just gonna do a quick scan. And we're gonna start at the top of our head with our crown chakra. And we're gonna move down to behind our eyes. If we feel any tightness, any weight, we're just going to observe it. Our breath might allow it to go, but we're gonna let the judgment go. We're gonna head down to our throat. This is a place that's very powerful, especially for youth. They have a very strong voice. They don't always know how to connect to it. Connecting to their voice and clarifying it is very powerful. Then we're gonna head down to our heart. If our voice is not connected to our heart, we really can't speak about or fight for what we believe in, what we're passionate about. And it's really easy to connect to fear rather than our heart. We're gonna allow the breath to go into our heart. Connect down to our gut, our upper gut. This is a place of power and empowerment. 12 and 13-year-olds can approach you as if they're very powerful. It's usually a defense mechanism. It's when they feel like they're out of control, they lack control. So them being able to connect to this allows for an independence and a self-empowerment. And then down to our lower stomach, which is a place around passion, art. Kids that are into art, dance, this can be a very powerful energy point. And all the way down to the base of our spine, which is our root chakra, connects to safety and family. And we can feel all the way down our knees into our toes, where we can squish them into the ground. I like to take my students to the beach and actually squish our toes in the sand a lot, just feeling connected to the land. So hopefully we're feeling just a little bit more connected in our bodies. So the 5 steps that I approach climate change with hope is, the first one is building a community within the classroom. And this community in the classroom needs to encourage trust, allow for a space where the students can come, they can show up as they are, they can express emotions. This topic is very vulnerable, and when we're thinking about climate change, our anxiety can really go up. Students' anxiety can really go up. And for us to be able to actually truly talk about something like this and be able to connect to our hearts, we have to provide a spot where they can feel safe. So ways that I do that is right off the bat, at the beginning of a school year, we always go on a hike. We try to get outside a lot. One that I've done this year and years before is head up to Somes. It's not a high mountain or anything like that, but just the climb itself is supposed to be a metaphor for that it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard, we're all going to do it together, and the view at the top is incredible. Then at the top, we do like a short connection, meditation, we appreciate the land, okay? And then circle work is really important too, I find. So at this point, I haven't even taught climate change. I actually don't until October. This is just all of the groundwork. So when connecting with people in circles, it's a space where everyone shows up in the same sort of way and everyone has a voice. Our second step is showing students that have voices. So there's a lot of people in the past that have had really powerful voices that are young, that are youth. And how this connects to climate change is there's a lot of youth that have voices. Our youth are going to be our change makers. So there's people in the past that have changed in the States how people that are Black are allowed in restaurants and they weren't before. That was a 6-year-old that did that, right? That's a 6-year, like that's how powerful a child's voice can be. And when we're teaching our youth, or when we're thinking about our youth and climate change, they don't feel like they're empowered, but when they start to learn about all these voices of people that are young, they start to really connect with, maybe I can make a difference, because they're looking to us to do it. And when we're looking at the world, it's the youth that we need to do this work. We just need to be able to light the fire under them and facilitate the space where they can step into it. And then after that, third step is the actual teaching. That's the fourth step. I forgot about outside. I kind of touched on outside. So the reason that outside's really important, that's between community and student voice, is because there's no point in teaching something about climate change, any big topic, if there's not a passionate connection, a why to it. And where we live is incredible for that. It's so easy to teach about climate change. It's so easy to think about climate change here. Like, this is gorgeous. We have the ocean, we have the mountains, we have everything around us that we need. And to bring students outside to do that, to connect with the land, makes way more sense to me than it does to just teach about it in a classroom. So going outside, connecting with the land, appreciating it, bringing them to beaches, to places, to community, to people that really care about the environment, and bringing people in also is very important. So this is us heading outside, doing a lot of nature-based learning, trying to connect to that why. This is Circle of Gratitude. This is connecting to the person and the people in the class, creating that community. So this is a chance where they're standing beside their friends, but they have to connect to someone across the circle and let them know why they care about them. This is right at the very beginning of the school year, and it's important that it's laid out that way because it's really hard for kids that are 12, 13 years old to compliment someone that they're not really close to. But it's really an important piece because it creates empathy and it also allows them to think about the other person, right? But in what they're going through as well as in gratitude. And this is a part of the circle work too, to be able to listen and not just be the one that's speaking. That's such an important piece. And then bringing people in. People that have a lot to share, a lot of wisdom, a lot of connection to their hearts and to the land. For me, those two things are not separate. And then when you combine that with the student voices, that can be really powerful for them and give them a chance to actually speak up. Then you start to teach it. Like, I feel like the connection and the trust is a really important piece first. So then when teaching it, I'm going through the lessons that all Johan, Simon, and Peter talked about. And after doing teaching in the class, the final step is peer project-based learning. So the students pick a topic around climate change with hope that they actually feel connected to, and they get to pick that topic based on what we've learned or research one that's completely separate, and they can pick a person that they work with, and we work on that for about a month. And it's project-based learning, and they need to be teaching it to the whole class. Now, usually, you would expect them to do what the minimum is, and some of them do, for sure. But about 60% end up going way beyond the minimum. So I've had students this year that have gone and visited the local farms. And they did it in groups, their group of 3. They brought their parents. They researched the farms that are raising animals ethically, and they filmed the pigs, they interviewed the farmers, they talked about all of that, and then they also compared it, quite minimally, because I really had them focus on hope, but to really impact it, they compared it to where most of us get our pork from. And they showed videos of the way that pigs were treated, and they talked about the hormones and all of the stuff that goes into our bodies. It was so powerful that people in the class, including myself, stopped buying meat from certain places and completely shifted it. And and you can do that, and you can end up eating a little less meat, and it doesn't cost you as much. But it was unreal. And I think that the piece of youth, teaching youth, like I think the next one here should be kids up here. Like youth, teaching youth is so powerful. And when they get really excited about it and they have a say in it and they have a choice in it, they end up presenting passionately. And they're not paid to be up there and present. They're up there presenting because they really care about the topic that they chose, and they've changed their lives based on it, some of them. And they're convincing the whole class how important it is. Like there's something that's so powerful in the youth teaching youth, and every single time I end up learning a lot. And then that brings it back to the beginning of building the community, is as the facilitator of this, I need to be open and vulnerable and have enough humility to let them know that there's a lot I don't know and a lot that they're teaching me. And I think that's a really important piece. This is when we went to the top of SOMS, and I like to start a year really based on creating that community. Parents brought in food, kids brought in food, we all had like a little get together to get to know each other. And I think that's it. I don't think I'm missing anything. That's kind of the main points I wanted to do. And then this is our QR code that has all the information we talked about. We have a lot of pieces of paper that we've accumulated over time and we've put together. We didn't bring them, we didn't totally talk to them, but they're all connected here if anybody's interested in that. I did want to say one more thing, Johan, that I forgot to say. Where did I put it? At the beginning of talking about climate change with my class, and I do this every year, we talk about what's a word before we even talk about it. Just what's a word on how you feel about climate change. We connect a lot, I connect a lot to the emotions of it, because I think that's the most powerful why, is when it's connected to your emotions. And some of the words were disappointed, worried, they were all quite negative. Then at the very end of the unit, after we've learned everything, after we do a lot of journaling also, and then they've watched everyone's presentations, they write down a word on the back, or we hand it back to them. And a lot of them wrote hopeful, but I'll put all the words, I'll face them up on how they ended the unit. And just seeing that little shift, and when you see all their words laid out, it can be pretty powerful for them to see that together.
Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you all. We will open up to questions. I'd just like to add as well. So the QR code takes you to the resources. We want to emphasize two things. One is, if you know of someone who teaches in the district or beyond, and they're looking for resources, please connect them with us, and feel free to share the QR code. It's not a monetary exercise. We are trying to get the message out with the resources and connect good practices. And we are also individually and collectively connected to a variety of networks beyond the Sunshine Coast as well. So the other hopeful part of this story is that there's teachers across the province and also across Canada that are working on a variety of really inspiring materials, and it continues to evolve. And the second piece is, we mentioned it in a variety of ways, is we are trying to find more ways to connect students in classrooms to actual work happening in the communities. So if you yourselves are involved, or if you know others who are involved in projects, we'd love to hear about them, because that's a mechanism we can then get more teachers on the coast connected to more classrooms and more students, ultimately coming away with a better understanding and actual opportunities to think about positive and hopeful careers and work, because I think the work that will need to be done in the decades ahead, right now, none of us in this room can fully appreciate what that will look like. But the sooner we start to connect the dots, the sooner they have those opportunities. So thanks again for coming out, and we'll open it up to questions.
You go first.
Okay, I was just wondering, when you did the role, take that away. When you did the role play, for being either the devil's advocate, of the powerful, or the climate advocate, how were the kids able to conceptually manage playing the devil's advocate, for the powerful?
They loved it.
Did it work out? I mean, were they able to grasp the, conceptually, being on the opposite side?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, they fully understand, that there's a wide variety of governments around the world, and that different governments have different priorities, and different corporations have different priorities. And so in our simulation, there were countries who were in full denial that the faucet was adding emissions to the metaphorical bathtub, and that the bathtub would ever overflow, and they relished that role to play the devil in that scenario, and to stymie, positive progression of the countries that wanted to make that happen, and you know, it was hard for the others, but that's real life, and so it was like a playing out of what happens at climate conferences. So,
Were they able to grasp more complex concepts like the need for employment that would be contributing to climate change?
that's a good question. Yeah, I mean,
That's pretty complex. But I was just wondering, because, you know, you're in a class for climate change, to learn about climate change, and then you split the group in, and you have one group actually trying to play the devil's advocate. So I was just wondering if they were able to get at complicated issues like that.
yeah, I mean, on a basic level, I think that type of theme was in the literature and in their sort of cue cards that they were playing off of, is that this is the reason why, you know, like we need to create jobs for our people and that kind of stuff. So
So you gave them cue cards in to provide support in order
That's
to
right.
play the role.
that's right. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great.
Okay.
Okay.
Good question.
I have a question. It's kind of for all of you, but so Peter, you said that your class, a lot of them were climate deniers, really. And it's interesting that you teach the younger group, right? 4 or 5, you said, right?
Oh, when I switched, I ended up going to a 6-7. So we're all grade 6-7 teachers who
okay.
then send students on to the high school.
So even your 6-7s, you were finding a lot of climate deniers, or was it more in the younger group?
So the younger classes I taught was Simon and Nest, and now that I'm at like a neighborhood school,
Oh, I see.
it's 6-7. And I'll say probably that 1 year was slightly off. There were some like key players who possibly other students were maybe a little scared of giving their opinion, and who had a lot of sway and influence, and kind of shifted the balance.
I'm also wondering about parents.
Yes.
And influence of parents, because, you know, as a parent who watched my kids kind of find their wings as they got older, right? You know, they were, you know, I remember this with my parents. I believed in their politics for a long time, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, I don't believe in their politics anymore, and I'm off on my own, right? So where does that fit with climate change?
Yeah, so I told this story earlier, and I had a student at recess come to me and go, hey, my stepdad thinks that what you said yesterday is total bunk. And then said, he was showing me this thing about NASA and how glaciers are actually not shrinking. They're actually the same size. And I mean, that's interesting because I know NASA has a great website, and I think they actually have a like in-depth thing on glaciers. So I'm like, let's look it up. So we looked it up, we looked up NASA, we went to the page they have on glaciers, and they have lots of historical photos of glaciers around the world, and then where the glaciers are now. They have satellite maps of glaciers. I actually went to Mount Baker that year, and like there's lots of evidence that the Mount Baker glacier is shrinking and all this stuff. And it was really cool to see, like, oh, you've got 2 adults, one has this information and one has this information. And so then I was like, okay, well, show your stepdad this. And I would love to like see what he comes back with. And she never came back with it, but I actually would have loved to have seen like where did that come from? And like but it was really beautiful, I think, and we all talked about this kind of like lead up. You got 1 year with these kids, so what can you do to make it work? And we're very lucky, we're not high school teachers, so we don't have a middle school system. We're not with them for an hour and 15 minutes. We're with them for like 5.5 hours every day for a year. So we had to build this relationship where this kid felt comfortable to come to me and go, you know what, you're wrong. I mean, kids will do that in high school, obviously. But then stay behind and go, show me your evidence. You know, so that was really great. I had, like I said, you know, students in different scenarios. One kid was going through like a family crisis where mom was really sick and dad was the only person at home. And what did they do in the evenings? They worked on dirt bikes and vehicles. You know, classic Sunshine Coast sort of like family, this is what we kind of do in the evening. He knew everything about all these different cars, how to pull them apart, all this stuff. And Dad was really against it, about us teaching climate change. But again, beautiful thing is this kid kept throwing his hand up, and we kept sort of being like, okay, but this is where we're getting the evidence from. This is what is being said. And we have all this study, this study, this study, this study, this study. All the numbers are the same. And just like, go ask your dad. And again, didn't like come back, but I like the idea of this like communication. Like we're not just here for the students, we're here for the community. Education builds a community. And I feel like, as Cassandra was saying, we're influenced by the community and by the students, and we also influence, right? So this idea of like, oh, these kids are now in the middle, and that's just part of growing up, is you get to a point where you start looking at the adults and you start going like, wait a second, right? Who's right here? So it was some beautiful opportunities for that.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just interested because we've had other speakers in this series talk about the adults and how those kitchen table discussions are pretty important, right? So I thought that's interesting to see that happening at such a young age.
And if I can add a little piece to that, I've had a lot of students convince their parents to make shifts. Like the kids can be pretty powerful in those dinner discussions too. And a lot of changes happen because of the kids and what they bring home.
Hi, I work with a lot of history educators and teachers, casting a historical lens on climate change, the climate crisis. And I see so much of what you do, which does that. You're just talking about evidence and looking at the glaciers. And I want to congratulate you on a fantastic presentation, first of all. It was really inspiring. I'm concerned, or one topic that I think about is there's so much here, there's a lot of people looking at Indigenous understanding of history and an understanding of the land and seeing the land in different ways, seeing history in quite different ways. And I'm wondering what you do, or what you've done, or what you hope to do that would bring in indigenous knowledge, and certainly we hear about that with the relationship to fire, but other ways that you might also use. Look at that indigenous aspect of their history and of their contemporary return of some of their knowledge.
So when I do the circle work, I always bring somebody in from the community. I bring someone in from Sechelt Nation to help with circle work, and how circles work, and as well as a lot of the connecting to the land. So I've had Candace Campo come in and do trips with my class as well, and connecting to the land, connecting to the trees. That was through Energy Matters. I've had her come a few times. And then also with our Indigenous teacher, Gus Guzak. He comes and helps with gardening, and we learn about the Three Sisters and do ways of connecting with that too, and how climate change has affected how we garden and what we can still do and the wisdom we can learn from the land. And then when we're talking about climate change, and also for some of the youth empowerment speakers, I've had showcased people who are Indigenous that have found ways to stand up for the land, and so just pieces, not necessarily like a flat hour of it, but more like just adding in the pieces all of the time. I think it's more important to speak about Indigenous ways of learning and the wisdom that we can get all of the time for small amounts than it is to just speak about it once for a long time, if that makes sense.
So there's a story, I forget who told it. I checked with Andy Quampmain last week of the Seashell Nation. He said he didn't remember it, but I thought I heard it from him. And in Earl's Cove, on the far side, Sultry Bay, there's a big mountain up there, and I once heard the story. I don't know if this is in Lester Peterson's book. That is it? Yeah, okay, that's where I got it from. Is that there was a great flood, and a canoe landed on top of one of these big mountains. And so you have this oral history that Lester Peterson wrote down that would lend itself to this idea of raising and lowering water levels. So you have that. Some people that I've spoken to in the Seashell Nation, there hasn't been, like, the stories haven't come up. Like, I kind of prodded some people to kind of ask, but I think the other thing that Cassandra is saying, that what we really want kids to see is to notice and observe and love the world around them, and then they will notice the changes, and they will care when something changes. And so there's a historic piece, there's pieces. It would take a good deal of work to, like, bring all that together. But when it's difficult to find, because sometimes it's really hard to find that material, then the thing we mostly care about is being on the land, caring about people around you, the things around you, and there's no better way.
Thanks. Thanks so much. This has been fantastic, and you're all climate heroes, so very grateful. So just 3 quick things. One, at the climate fair here last September, we were lucky to have a 28-minute kickoff video by Catherine Hayhoe, and don't know if you've already seen it, and it wouldn't be what you want to start with, but at some point, that might be a useful resource. When there was an interesting graph about different attitudes about climate change by country, I remember seeing a similar graph, which was the percentage of people who believed that climate change was largely due to humans as opposed to natural causes. And the highest percentage was in China, which surprised me a bit. But what I think, and I also noticed Mexico was quite high. So a hypothesis is that if you have really shitty local air quality, you're more convinced of the link between what humans do and what happens, even though it's a different type of mechanism. But and the last thing I just want to say is that we're thinking a bit about the 2026 climate fair, roughly around Earth Day, and if some of these fantastic student projects could be presented, like they could have booths or something, that would be fantastic, because there's also going to be people building solar panels and doing energy efficiency things and stuff like that, and so there's a lot of chance for mingling. So I just sort of plant that seed that might be a nice time. I think Johan, we talked about that a little bit. So thanks so much.
Hi, my name is Caroline, and I'm running a charity called Econova Education, and we do environmental education in schools, mostly French schools and French immersion schools, but we start working with English schools, which is great. And I was very inspired by all the work you're doing in your classroom, and we work a lot with teachers, and I'm just wondering, like, according to you, what are the main barriers which prevent teachers from bringing this conversation in the classroom, and what kind of support do they need? Because Econova, we offer teacher training, we offer workshops, but sometimes we feel like some teachers don't have time or don't have the resources to bring that in the classroom. So I'm really curious to hear you about that and hear what you have to say about it. Yeah, thank you.
That's a great question, and cool to meet you. I think there's a few things that prevent teachers from teaching about climate change, and so yeah, one at a time. I think one is a lack of knowledge. Some teachers just don't know enough about it and don't feel like they know where to start. I think also it's such a vulnerable and emotional topic for students, and they're worried about making their students feel bad or like being a downer. I think so that probably prevents them from talking about it. I think as well there's a lot of resources out there, but it's hard to find the right ones. You know, like if you look on a lot of teachers, if they are about to teach something, they'll look on Teachers Pay Teachers, which is this website, and there's just not great stuff on there sometimes. So not finding the right stuff, not knowing where to look. Teachers are super busy, and you know, we have all these amazing professional development days and great professional development opportunities, and climate presenters do come, but they're often not well attended. Not always, but sometimes that happens. So I think we've presented a little bit at some professional development conferences, and I think the word hope, like this positive outlook, brings people in more, because that's something that helps them feel comfortable or feel like, okay, well, if it's going to have a positive message, this could help. I think you know, teachers feel like they have to cover all this curriculum, and so if you can link a whole unit to a certain curriculum, sort of like Peter did with chemical changes or human history, something they already have to teach. Well, here's a whole unit plan for something you already have to teach, but here's a climate lens that we can, you know, teach it through. I think might help some teachers be like, oh, okay, well, I've taught this before, let me try this again with a new way. Or teachers want to go to professional development and then get something and teach it the next day, and be able to like, I will use this. I think I do anyway. So having real stuff that they can take and then teach the next day. Yeah. What do you want to add?
I think some barriers have been taken down over the years with the curriculum. So we're assessing competencies, not just content. So there wasn't a quiz at the end of my unit. I'm able to look at their journals and actually see if they covered, can they use scientific understandings to identify relationships and draw conclusions? That's the content area. So I'm covering the curriculum by reading their journals and having conversations about the data that they've seen. I don't have to agree with their conclusion, but are they drawing it from somewhere and able to like put things together and showing thought? So I want to cover the curriculum, which is my job. And so this allows me to do that. So the new curriculum. The other one, I brought this up but never mentioned it. This is our strategic plan. This is new this year, and it's our like 4-year plan for the school district. And if you pretty much open it to any page, watch me as I flip between pages. So nature-based learning. Well, hey, that is like one of the main strands for SD46 for learning. Experiential hands-on learning. Well, hey. Oh, so all of my bosses agree that these are things that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing my job well if I do these things, and this is the direction that we want our school district to go. That's kind of encouraging. And so when we are out doing these things, I mean, maybe years ago, people, even the kids in my class, why? And so when parents are going like, well, how come you're not like doing this math right now, or covering this reading? Or I can go like, hey, the Ministry of Education and School District 46 say that this has to happen. So I'm backed from the top. And so I want to say, like, I think sometimes there's key players in community, and I know some of you like possibly can pull on like strings, but it does matter. Like what we write into law and where the direction we set at the governmental level really matters and frees us, you know, the workers at the bottom to like head in certain directions. Yeah.
I'd say there's one more. Just one more barrier that I think is pretty common is when you teach about climate change, you really should go outside for part of it. Like, I think that's a huge important piece. And a lot of teachers are scared to go outside because that number's becoming way less and way less every year, I'd say. But they're worried that behaviors will increase if you leave, you know, your management will decrease, behaviors will increase if you leave the walls of the classroom. But that's just not true. If you set up for going outside, your behaviors actually can decrease. But that connection to land and going outside is an important part.
it's a great question that you asked. I would add to that, just having been involved with a few organizations provincially that are supporting teachers and teacher education, and having been a classroom teacher myself, is I think teachers form a bell curve like any population of people, and there are people in the population of educators who are as tuned out of climate change as some of the people in the general community, and I think that's just a fact. In fact, my daughter came home last week having had an argument with a substitute teacher that day about climate change, and the teacher was adamant that it was not a problem and an issue.
Wow.
So we kind of just had to go back to the stop part with her. You can't necessarily change everyone's mind. I had this conversation with a teacher very recently who teaches high school in the community, and it was a really interesting take, because his take was that he actually felt that, contrary to, I think, both what Peter said and these three star educators are talking about in terms of their practice, that some teachers are seeing the new curriculum as well. It's not making it explicit that thou shalt teach climate change education with these particular areas. So it assumes a level of, I don't know what we would call it, I guess some sentience and awareness, and thinking beyond just the bulleted headlines in a news feed. And his perception was that it was happening less and less because people are more and more distracted, which is kind of what I opened with, is I think we are, and other writers and speakers can say this a lot better than I can, but we're increasingly in this area where it is so easy to pick up a screen and just check out. And we're all doing it because it is literally like having cocaine in your pocket. And boom, there you go. And all the endorphins and things happening in your brain, right? It's a very quick feedback loop. And I think it's an act of revolution to put the screen down. And as Peter, as all of them said, take yourself outside. And then if you're a teacher, take that next step and bring your students outside and trust. I remember having this argument at school teaching Biology 11. And my thesis work was getting Biology 11 students away from dissecting dead things to learn about the living world and going outside to explore the outdoors. And there were complaints to the principal that this was causing distractions because the math and English and other students were looking out the windows and going, why do they get to go outside? And I looked at my administrator and said, well, there's many sides to the school. Could we not like mark off 6 areas and on any given lesson sign out what side of the school you want to be on, and we can all be outside in a rotating schedule, right? So I think these three really speak to breaking out of the box, and I think we need to help more teachers break out of the box.
Well, I think it's,
Oh,
sorry,
I
go
have
ahead.
so many questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, maybe to connect with that piece around the distractions and social media and how strong that has become and how we're being so inundated. In the non-school realm, we are recognizing, especially with the rise of AI, how important it is to increase all of our media literacy. So I was wondering if you can speak to how much that may or may not be encouraged within the curriculum, how much you are seeing that as something vital even at the younger elementary age to do some work around how do you tell what, because it kind of goes to, looking back to sources, but now, with deep fakes and everything else, and also just the rise of a lot of influencers and the monetization. So yeah, wondering how you incorporate that, or if you do.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Oh, God.
The question was how do we find sources with the amount of AI and deepfakes going on? So how much is it? It's in the curriculum quite a bit.
Is it?
Yeah, that you need to know your sources, you need to know where things are coming from, and to be able to tell good information from bad information. And really quickly, students do use computers and search engines to look things up. If you're using Google, which we are, Gemini is a thing that comes up. First of all, we're not supposed to be using OpenAI like that, but it comes up, and it's the first thing students see. When you use it, we've taught students to see that over on the side is actually the sources where that system of AI is getting its information from, which is really beautiful. So it's really nice, and we've just been saying, hey, when you do this project and you need to know where this information from, it's not just from Gemini. You actually have to do the next step, which is go over and see. It's just collecting and collating information for you, and it hasn't been too bad. I mean, it's just another step for them, but I'm okay with them doing more work. Anything you want to add to that, or?
There's a great organization called Civics that runs the student vote program, and they do amazing work on engaging students in information and misinformation, disinformation, specifically around politics. But so they invent great curriculum for kids that I've used quite a bit, and yeah, recommend that.
Can I just?
Yeah, sure.
share something?
Is the microphone
It's
floating
over.
right?
It's
Oh, you got it? Okay, good.
Sorry. Yeah, so I work in environmental education, and we've been working on a lot of projects and workshops. And I've been like looking at a lot of researchers, and one of them showed that helping the kids and teenagers to visualize what could be a hopeful and sustainable future is something that can help. And so what I want to share with you is it's been 3 years that we've been running a contest. It's called The Future is Your Design. And we call for Canadian youth, French and English speakers to imagine what could be a sustainable future in Canada. And the theme of this year is a sustainable city, and it's free, and it's until the 30th of June. And I mean, I could send the resources to you, but yeah, I think this kind of opportunities and spaces and using art to let the kids and the teenager express themselves and imagine a better future can be also a very powerful tool. And yeah, and I wanted to share that with you, and yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I saw that, and I've given it to my students. Yeah, so it made its way. Well done.
Well, what a fantastic evening.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all you've done, are doing, and will continue to do. And hopefully we can stay in touch so that students can, get to meet people who are doing stuff in the community, and then, seeing action happening increases hope. So,
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah.
thank you. Very grateful.